Hello and welcome back to the Bear Independent channel. I am Bear with BearIndependent.com. Today we're going to talk about shock in the trauma setting in our continuous conversation. Continuing in our conversations, the best words, tremendous, believe it, of tactical combat casualty care or tactical emergency casualty care if you're a civilian. What is shock? Why does it matter? Well, it really, for us, what we're concerned about is what's called hypovolemic shock. Hypo meaning a lack of, volemic meaning volume, a lack of volume of blood. There's several different types of shock. Cardiogenic shock, which means your heart stops beating, whether that's mechanically because of something like this or because you have a heart attack. Vasogenic shock, which is usually has to deal with an allergic reaction where your arteries and your veins actually expand, which lowers the perceived volume of blood to the heart. Blood pressure goes down, bad stuff happens, it's crazy. And then hypovolemic shock, meaning there's not enough blood in your body. And that's important because blood is an oxygen delivery system. And if you don't get enough oxygen to your organs, they shut down and then you die. So my dad always liked to say, a picture says 1,000 words. And let's take a picture. See this gallon jug of water right here on this stand? That's you. Okay, I'll be the bad guy. Let's go look at you. Hold on. So you didn't come out of that so good. There's our entry wound right there, 30 caliber hole. There's our exit wound. Kind of a big deal. So let's talk about this. The stages of hypovolemic shock and how much blood can I lose before there's a problem? Because there's actually three stages of hypovolemic shock. The first is called compensatory, the next is called decompensatory, and the last is called irreversible. It's called irreversible for a reason. You look pretty bad, buddy. You need to see a medic or something. So, for our visual aids today, I found these in my barn. I don't know where they came from. So if you left these in my barn 2 years ago, I apologize. This is a liter bottle of sweetened, sparkling black cherry water. This is 1 liter. Okay? Again, picture says 1,000 words. You have approximately 5 liters of blood in your body. This is based upon body weight, and there is an equation that we can do. It's X amount of milliliters per kilogram of body weight, but it, for our purposes, doesn't matter right now. The average adult has 5 liters of blood inside of them. Children have less blood because they're smaller. So, here's your first liter of blood, okay? Looking? See what that looks like? That's a half liter of blood. Are you gonna die from this? No. This is how much blood you give, 500 milliliters, 1 unit, when you donate blood. No biggie. You might need a cookie after this or some orange juice, okay? Some of us, larger people, because we have a higher volume of blood, donate 2 units, 1 liter of blood when we donate. What does that look like? See all that blood? Are you gonna die from that? No. You might be a little lightheaded, you might be a little woozy, but you'll be okay. Generally speaking, unless you have any underlying medical issues, you can lose a liter of blood, no problem. Your next liter of blood, okay? At a liter of blood loss, no big deal. A little woozy, things aren't great, but we're definitely not gonna die. Liter number 2, Fuji apple blood. Let's look at what this looks like on the ground. Can you see the wet spot down here? Okay, that's 1.5 liters of blood gone. At this point, your body begins compensatory shock, compensatory hypovolemic shock. The amount of blood in the body is low enough that because blood is an oxygen delivery vehicle, an oxygen delivery system, your respiration rate will increase at this point to get more oxygen into your lungs and distributed to your blood to make up for the lack of volume of blood. So at 1.5 liters, we begin compensatory shock, the beginning stages of hypovolemic shock, okay? At 1.5 liters. What happens at 2 liters? Pay attention to how quickly this goes. At 2 liters, now at 2 liters, you're now in decompensatory shock. That much difference in the volume of blood. Your body's starting to figure out that something's truly wrong, okay? At this point, the body is pulling blood from the extremities and moving it to the core, because your extremities can go for hours and hours without blood flow, but your core cannot. Your muscle tissue and your organ tissue are two very different things. Your organs have to stay oxygenated. Muscle, not so much. 12 hours-ish on muscle without any long-term effects. Organs, a few seconds, and we have problems, okay? And so at 2 liters, the body begins decompensatory shock. All this is generally speaking, by the way. There are caveats and asterisks to all of this. And also, we teach this in our Refuge Training Responder 1 class. Our intro level class covers all of this, hypovolemic shock and its stages and blood loss and all of that. Okay, so at 2 liters, we're now in decompensatory shock. We go into liter number 3, okay? Remember, you've only got 5 liters. See how quickly this is going? Liter number 3. Liter number 3. Let's look at our big wet spot on the ground. Oop. At 2.5 liters of blood loss, we are now at the beginning stages of irreversible hypovolemic shock. There's not enough blood volume in your body to sufficiently oxygenate your internal organs. At this point, if we get you on an ambulance, and if we get you immediately to the hospital, and if you go straight through triage, straight into an operating room with a surgeon waiting on standby, ready to receive you, you have a 50-50 chance of survival at this point. 50-50 with the entirety of modern medicine. This is why it's incredibly important to keep the blood inside your body. You see how quickly that blood's coming out? Stick your hand out in front of you and make a fist, okay? Stick your thumb up. Do this. Look at your thumb. That's the diameter of your femoral artery. That's how big your femoral artery is. Femoral artery bleeds are a big deal. For example, here's my thumb. It doesn't fit inside of this. My thumb is actually bigger around this than this opening, and look how quickly that blood comes out. That's why we say arterial bleeding is oh shit bleeding. When you see somebody bleeding and you go, oh shit, generally speaking, bright red blood, that volume, that fast, this is oh shit bleeding. We got to do something about that right now. Because if we fail to keep 50% of our volume of blood inside of our body, we have a 50-50 chance under the best of circumstances of survival. Under the worst of circumstances, unfortunately, you're done for. This is why we wear plates over our lungs and our heart, right? Because it's really hard to fix problems inside of this box right here if somebody does something like one of these to you, right? So hypovolemic shock is a big deal, and it's directly related to blood loss. Additionally, what's referred to as the lethal triad, which is hypothermia, acidosis, and coagulopathy, are all directly related to blood loss. And so it seems like a very basic concept, but we want to keep as much blood inside the body as possible. That's why in a TCCC situation, we have our care under fire phase where whoever the casualty is, as long as they're conscious and able to render self-aid, puts a tourniquet on. This is a soft T. You can use a CAT. You can use the SAM-XT. There's lots of good TCCC, Committee on TCCC approved tourniquets that you can use, whatever flavor you prefer. But under care under fire, a conscious casualty is going to render self-aid by applying tourniquets, right, to the extremities. Tactical field care, when we've taken that hot zone to a warm zone, now we get into buddy aid, not self-aid, where we're going to do things like wound pack with hemostatics or with compressed gauzes, pressure bandages in the junctional areas, the neck, the shoulders, the pelvic girdle, the ass. And pelvic girdle is a bad place to get wounded, man. And then we move into Casovac or Medevac, which we addressed in the previous video. Get off the X, get out of here. Bad stuff happened here, we can't stay here. And probably what we'll discuss next, and I'm always interested in your comments down below. I want to know if you guys are appreciating this, if it's making sense, what questions do you have, so we can continue to address this stuff, is what's called a CCP or a casualty collection point. Where do we take the casualties? Who is at the casualty? Who are our aid and litter teams that are going to move the casualties? Our most qualified medical professional does not need to be on the assaulting team or the security team or the support team or as part of the leadership. They need to be at the CCP, casualty collection point, because if people get hurt, that's where we're taking them. And then at that point, we can start doing deeper medicine to keep these people alive. What does my hand say? It says, make content, because I was rebuked by a couple of my admins today. Hey, dude, you got nothing in the bank. Roger that. I'll make some content. So here we are making content. So TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. It goes really quick, boys and gerbils. That blood comes out of the body really quick. And this is why we stress tourniquets, bleeding control kits, aid bags, something simple like this. This has got mud on it because it's been riding around on my four-wheeler. This is a bleeding control kit put together by North American Rescue. We sell these at refugemedical.com, right? And you can use promo code BearNation because it's my company, Refuge Medical. Handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever, exceeds military specification, 36 lives saved to date in the last 2 years on 4 continents with all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, thousands of law enforcement officers, tens of thousands of civilians like y'all. Thank you for blessing our small businesses. We appreciate it. Bleeding control kit, a tourniquet, a pressure bandage, wound packing gauze, gloves, an emergency blanket. Why the burrito blanket? Because remember, 1/3 of the lethal triad is hypothermia, right? Got to keep the casualty warm. Bad things happen to your clotting factor and your survivability rate goes down with every degree of body temperature drop. So burrito blanket, not a throwaway. Set of shears so you can expose the wound, the whole 9, okay? Have this or a Bearfac 3.0 or an SOB kit, an adventure kit, whatever, but a real trauma first aid kit, not some Band-Aids and a rat's tourniquet, air quote tourniquet, from some of those other guys. No, you want something that conforms to the Committee on TCCC guidelines, like a soft T, like a CAT, like a SAM-XT, whatever. But it's super important. Like, it's super basic, but it's super important. Keep as much blood inside the body as possible, because the stage of hypovolemic shock at 1.5 liters, we begin compensatory shock. At 2 liters, we're now in decompensatory shock. The body can't keep up. And at 2.5 liters, the amount of blood right here, this amount of blood, watch this. At 2.5 liters, we're in irreversible hypovolemic shock. You're gonna die. Watch how fast this goes. Compensatory. Decompensatory. Irreversible. Picture says 1,000 words, right? And this, of course, comes back to tactics. If your tactics for SHTF are to get into as many gunfights as we can and win as many as possible, your tactics suck. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be good at gunfights, but don't go looking for them, man, because that's a two-way range. Bullets go both ways, and you need to know how to do this stuff. More importantly, you need to know how to do this stuff in everyday life. Motor vehicle accidents, statistically, the most dangerous thing we do is drive, right? As Americans, the most dangerous thing we do statistically is drive. Additionally, 9 out of 10 preventable deaths in the United States of America are from uncontrolled bleeding. Think about that. That means you and your minivan or your work truck or your school bus, you need tourniquets, pressure bandages, wound packing gauze, and you need to know how to use them so you can save a life. It's a big deal. Half of the lives saved with Refuge medical kits have been motor vehicle accidents, and it's almost always the same methodology. There's a bad wreck, the femur, the bone inside the thigh breaks, it squirts out the inside of the thigh, and it severs partially or completely the femoral artery, the diameter of your thumb. And oh shit, bleeding starts, and it starts dumping out all over the place. And if you don't get a tourniquet on that like that fast, you got about 90 seconds before you lose consciousness. And after 90 seconds, if you're unconscious and nobody's there to help you, guaranteed you're not rendering self-aid. So it's that important, guys. I hope this video was a blessing to you. I hope it makes sense. As always, I'm interested in your comments down below. Again, and I'm not the ShamWow guy, but if you need to get some medical gear, you can get it at refugemedical.com, and your promo code's BearNation for free shipping. Bless y'all. Shalom.